Our guest today is Mr. Pankaj Rai, Senior Vice President at Wells Fargo. Pankaj has had an amazing journey starting with management consulting, moving to the financial services industry with the likes of GE Capital and ICICI. And he went on to build the analytics practice at Dell. He now drives transformation at Wells Fargo. Welcome, Pankaj.
Hello, Suman, and thanks for getting me up ready on a Sunday morning.
Thank you so much for taking time out. We are currently in a pandemic. A lot has been said. I mean, every day that's all we are reading, and of course, creating a lot of anxiety. So in your view, what's going to be different or changing as we come out the other end, hopefully quite soon?
Yeah. Thanks, Suman. And I think these days there are many definitions of also what we are going through. So the last one that I heard was that actually there's no one epidemic, there are three epidemics. Of course, the health one is the pandemic. And then we have the infodemic, which is, I think WHO probably coined that term, that there's a lot of information which comes out and then those models and those ideas are proved wrong. And sometimes, of course, there is fake news. So there's a lot of information which is creating a problem. And then the last one is, in some ways you can call it a fear-demic or something like that, where people are worried about, what's going to happen. And the question that you asked that, will I lose my job? Will the economy go down? What will happen to my investment, my family? People are staying away from family, all of that. So I think a lot of different things are happening all at the same time. And the best analogy someone gave me the other day was that this is a common open book exam given by some divine to the entire world, to say, now please solve it. So while we were worried about AI and intelligence, we have been given an unintelligent virus and told that, you guys can't even fix it. Forget solving AI problems. So interestingly, you can think about these things in many different ways. But, the way I look at where we stand today and how this epidemic plays out is as under. The way I look at it is that in the past, we were in a very linear world. We were, I used to be a Six Sigma guy. We would drive continuous improvement. People in software development used to drive, waterfall development. So all of those ideas were part of a linear world where the future was predictable. You could drive improvement because you knew where you were going. You could drive a waterfall because you knew where you would be 2-3 years from now, and so on and so forth. So that linear world is now giving rise to a non-linear world. Right, and therefore, the idea what we used to stand by in the past, which we used to call continuous improvement, which was quite good in that time because the future was predictable, is now giving rise to what I call continuous reinvention. And that reinvention really is a geometric phenomena, and the future is not predictable because human minds can't deal with geometric progression and so on and so forth. So I think that is the big difference that was there in the past and what is there now. And that whole, VUCA world that we talked about, this pandemic is really, in my mind, a sandbox experiment where all of those things that we think were going to happen is happening together all the time to all the people. And we can see in that sandbox how different people are reacting to it. So I think it's a great opportunity to also think about how do you deal with total ambiguity where you have no idea what's going to happen. And how do we collaborate? How do we come together? How do we react to it? So to me, this is a great opportunity for all of us to prepare for the new world, which is anyway likely to be in the same fashion, continuing forward for times to come. It may not be a heightened epidemic situation, but it still will be the characteristics of that world will be very similar, where you don't know what's going to happen, same side of situation in front of you. And how do we react? So I think it's some kind of a net practice that humanity is being given in this pandemic time. And hopefully, if we learn the net practice very well, we can play the game for a long time to come.
It's interesting how you put it. You've heard of disruptions in the past, and we talked of reinventing. But I like the way you put it as continuous reinvention, which also kind of shows the extent of the change, and that is the new normal, if you will. Historically, times of adversity has brought in innovations and inventions. So a lot of the good stuff has also happened, right? It also brings in behavior change. So how do you see the current disruption changing mindsets and behaviors?
Yeah. And I think that's a very good question because, given that what I said, if that is the case, then what should we learn and how should we think about it? And, the learning that I spoke about. And again, my view is in one theme, The knife that was continuous improvement, Six Sigma, which was used to sort of move forward, has become a Swiss knife now in the mode of continuous improvement, where that single knife of Six Sigma, which drove continuous improvement, has to be supplemented, augmented with other knives, which are design thinking, AI, automation, and many other things that we don't even know before. So I think, given that you are dealing with a multi-dimensional, broad, very rapid change, the tools and technique that we need to deploy to deal with it has become, in my analogy, the Swiss knife. And you need to know which knife to pull in which order. So the sequencing is important. The combination of the two is also important. So I think that is a learning that some of us are having in some parts of the world. But I think all of us will have to do that. I think the second learning, I would say that again, that linear, simple world required us to have one education and a career for a lifetime. So my dad became an engineer, and if his first company hadn't closed down, he would have probably retired in the same company. I probably will, work in 5 or 6 companies before retirement. And I'm quite certain my daughter, who's going to join the workforce now, will probably, work in several companies. Not only that, she will probably work in several different careers. So I think the number of careers that each one will have now will be far more than what we had before. And what really that means is that the disruption and this geometric change is an intra-generational change. So while in my dad's generation or in my generation, some people could live through it without getting impacted. In my daughter's generation, no one can live through it without getting impacted. And therefore, it is a necessity to continue to reinvent yourself, continue to learn new things and all of that. And therefore, the change would be that you can't get one degree and hope that it will last your lifetime. You have to be a continuous learner. And therefore, I was, even telling my daughter that if you want to do a master's, and she was thinking, should she do a master's? I said, maybe you can just do your, job after your undergrad for a while, figure out what makes sense. And that point in time, let's say 3 to 5 years from now, you want to do a master's. Only that master's course done at that point in time with a different course, which you might do today. So why do you want to do an old course now versus a new course when it is required, and things like that? And I think that idea can be, taken forward to mean that we will have to continue to learn, because we will have to continue to reinvent. And that's something which I think this new generation will automatically adapt to, in my opinion. I don't know whether it will be as drastic as I'm making out to be, because they've been living in this world and they probably know it better than us, that this degree that they're picking up is unlikely to last them a lifetime. So I think those are some of the changes that we all will have to make in our thinking, belief, and so on and so forth. Because as they say, beliefs become thoughts and thoughts become action. And today, beliefs are getting questioned, and we have to form new beliefs. When I was studying economics, I didn't think of negative interest rates. When I was studying commodities, I didn't know oil could be negatively priced. So I think many of our beliefs have changed already, and several other beliefs will get disrupted. And I think therefore we need to be aware that this continuous reinvention is impacting beliefs, and some of the beliefs will change. And I think the question therefore becomes, if everything will change, what will I stand by? What will not change? Because that's the most important question, because if everything is geometrically changing, there has to be something that I can hang on to. But I think as human beings, we like to hang on to something. Historically, we have hung on to many things. We have hung on to our, identities, religion, and so on and so forth. So to me, I think what we will have to hang on to will be a purpose and our identity. And I think we'll have to therefore define that purpose and that identity at a meaningfully higher level to not get disrupted. Your purpose can't be very task oriented, that, I will be an engineer who will solve this problem, because both the engineer and that problem will disappear in a year or two. So that purpose has to be at a much more meaningful, higher level so that it does not change. And therefore, I think people will probably have to not be connected to job loyalty, because companies may come and go, their purposes may change. But if you have a purpose, you will seek it out. It may be in this company, in that company, on your own, whatever, and so on and so forth. So I think those are some of the, if I use a crystal ball, changes that I think that we will all get adept with and need to adapt to.
So the pace of change also is quite amazing. You talked of just 2-3 generations, and my father also retired from the same company. He worked throughout. So I think that linearity is obviously very clear, right? And that linearity is not there today. Today, a lot of people are talking about the second innings, right, if you will. And so it's from one job to multiple jobs and maybe second innings. And I think what I'm hearing you saying is when you say multiple careers, it also means multiple innings, right? It's not only about moving jobs. And that to me is quite a phenomenal change, the pace of change in just 2-3 generations, right? Every generation is changing.
Yeah, I think if you want to use that sports analogy, I would say you will play a lot of T20 type matches. You might be playing this now, and then you might be playing kabaddi next, and then you might be playing hockey next, and so on and so forth. So it's not a cricketing game that you will play over and over again in a different format. The game will change is how I would look at it.
I love your metaphors, by the way. The Swiss knife. I'm trying to remember all of them. The Swiss knife and the multiple pandemics and the open book test. All of those. Excellent. So one question is, given all this change, on one hand, we are hearing that we need more multidisciplinary folks, right? And on the other hand, we hear that's the age of super specialization. So essentially, we are talking of being both broad as well as deep. So is this even possible in your view?
Yeah, I think there what I'm observing is that, like I said, again, in that linear world, when a lot of things did not change, we were solving certain problems which were there in a certain way. But I think what has now happened again because of this, every job I think is getting split into the two extremes. And let me explain what that means. The two extremes to me is, on the one hand, it is more strategic and more product oriented. So if you are a tech guy, you may relate to the product management type of a discipline. But if you are not, then you might relate to the strategy word more. But to me, both are the same. That someone who's driving it to the customer, evolving the roadmap, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, it is more engineering, more execution, more deeper functional knowledge. And while on the technical side, it's easier to understand when people talk about product roles and engineering roles. You could be in HR. Even in HR, you can't be a taskmaster doing just the task in the middle, which is what I call the middle. You have to, on one hand, go to a strategy person who should think, okay, what should it be? How should I evolve this discipline? On the other hand, how do I deliver it in the most cost efficient, most easy way? And that might require more deep functional knowledge, maybe, these days, digital knowledge. So I think even in HR, we are seeing a lot of technology and these transformations happening. So someone has to be a strategist thinking about the human side of it. On the other hand, someone has to probably be a technologist to deliver an app which might solve that problem in the best possible way. So I think everywhere you have to, generalize to become a strategist and also specialize to deliver it. So I think that trend is happening. Now, to your point, I do think that ideally you need both. But if you don't have both, you need to have one and some understanding of the other. Because today you can't solve a problem in its own silo. You have to connect to other things. And therefore, whoever you are, you got to, be able to understand all the other parts of the equation. In fact, yesterday I was talking to some folks on the, project management, program management side. And on this question, I was sharing with them that, the programs or the projects have to be in the context of a function. And you can't just be a very generic person to say, I will solve a problem. But, a healthcare problem is different from an airline problem. And people will expect you to understand the context of that industry. And many of those things will require you to know the Swiss knife elements as well. Because in order to solve those problems, you might require certain, capabilities which are beyond just pure project management. So I think to your question, I would imagine that one has to have a combination, not just one or the other. In what quantity do you need both? I think can depend in the context that you are, the value that you carry, because you will have to collaborate with many other people. You are not going to be doing it on your own. So if you did know a lot of those things, it is possible for you to do more on your own. But if not, you still have to collaborate.
So what I'm understanding is the strategy and the technologies, those are the two different kind of roles. One is broader, one is deeper. In terms of, you've done a lot of technology and you've been one of the stalwarts in analytics, a lot of the AI stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of human skills as well, right? And I think when it comes to human skills, it's also we need to be broader. That's the view I have, right? In terms of understanding, empathizing with what, and as you said, you can't be in the middle. You need to understand both your left and right. So that makes it a kind of a broader spectrum. So speak to us a little bit about how, we keep talking about digital skills, but how human skills you think are they important, and if so, why are they important?
I think there are several ways in which we are all observing the same thing. One of the things is, even when I was in the data analytics field, my favorite analogy to my team used to be that, we have been all rewarded for solving problems. You got 100 marks in maths and, you'll get a chocolate or whatever. So solving problem was always a great skill to have, and we felt that was the end of it. And now we all know that it's actually defining problems. We have also heard asking the right questions, which is really, forming the right problem. I remember my Six Sigma days where this, tool called DMake was utilized: define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And define was supposedly the most important one, because if you did not define it appropriately, you'll get it all wrong. So I think we all realize that defining the problem is far more important than solving it. In fact, the other favorite analogy I used to have, that if I had a maths exam and if I gave you a paper and said, tell me what are the most important problems that you think are worth solving using mathematics. So I will test you not only on your solution, but more importantly on the choice of problem that you chose. That tells me how you're thinking about what it is, right? Now, we haven't been trained that way, but we know that is where, we are all headed. So to me, I think that is really human. Who will define the problems? A robot cannot define the problem for you. It's us humans who have to define problems. So one of the themes I have is that the solution space can actually get automated, but the problem space will remain indeterminate. And that is where we will continue to play a huge role. So that is one way of determining why, humanness, we have to be even more human than we were before, despite more and more AI coming in, because they will continue to solve these problems using Moore's law at a faster and faster pace. But we will probably have to define those problems at the same rate to say, here's something more for you to solve. So I do think that we will complement each other when people talk about AI, intelligent machine, that our, need to solve more problems will feed the AI to continue to solve it. But unfortunately, I don't think they will ever define those problems. So that is my sort of best way of defining why humanness will be even more required in future than ever before, when people talk about AI ruling the world and so on.
So moving tracks, one of the important skills which many people lack is networking skills. Some do not like doing it, and some don't know how to. Given your networking skills, what would be your advice to improve this important skill?
Yeah. So, networking, AI, many of these things are a means to an end. So to me, again, the bigger purpose, what you stand for, what do you want to achieve? If some of those things are clarified, then some of these means to that end also gets clarified. So when I look back, and I don't think I developed networking skill because, I had to. In fact, I didn't even know I was a networker till someone told me so. So when I look back and said, okay, why did I become what people call a networker? Is that, I think I was curious. I wanted to know things. And whenever I found someone, I will talk to them. And I was also interested in, helping them. So I will tell them something that I, came up with. It's, hey, this is interesting so much. This might help you because I understand what you are trying to do. So I think, my guess is that my purpose really was to learn and to help. And in order to do that, this was a very handy tool which came around and which allowed me to do both those things. And the corollary was that I became a networker. So I think that people have to figure out what do they need, and therefore, how can that get done? And if then networking becomes a corollary, then it's okay. But if you start to become a networker, I think there's a problem. Just like when people say, I want to be an AI engineer. But, why would you want to do that if you don't have a purpose to do that? So I do think that you have to start with the purpose, start with the why, and then figure out what are the means to do that. And if you, in today's world, determine any purpose, I think it will require you to collaborate. It is very hard unless you are a scientist who is solving equations on your own. If you're solving any real world practical problem, you want to understand that problem, you'll probably apply design thinking, which will require you to network with a lot of people to determine what the problem is. And when you have to solve it, again, you will want to go to a lot of people with many multidisciplinary skills to help solve the problem. So I think when you have a purpose, then the networking becomes so much more easier and more purposeful and meaningful versus for the sake of it. So,
excellent. Based on what I've also heard from different people, I think that one thing I'm hearing different from you, from typically what you hear, is people look at networking as something that will help them, maybe now or later. Whereas what you're saying is, look at networking, the purpose being to help others. And I think that's a big shift, right? And then once you do that, once the lens changes, then it's that much easier because now you have a purpose.
Yeah. In fact, somewhere someone said that instead of being we are being told to become go-getters. If only we were told to be go-givers, I think the go-getter will happen on its own. And I think there's a book by that name, which I didn't know. I had coined this term go-giver at one point in time, and later on found that there's a book by this name. But I truly believe in it, that, if you are a go-giver, the go-getter part is subsumed within that, which we don't see it, but it happens, I think, over time.
I'm inspired. Not that I was much of a go-getter, but I think I'll try becoming a go-giver now. So you're also, for many of our viewers who may not know, you're also an avid runner and a marathoner. And needless to say, a huge network of your running circles as well. Given the demands of the job and your other commitments, for example, you sit on various industry bodies, please share with our audience the source of your energy and what drives you to constantly push boundaries.
I obviously don't look at myself in the same sentence that you said, that I have, lots to do and how do I keep balance. I think it just happens naturally to me. So this whole running piece is happening on the weekend. I don't do any running or any such activity. And therefore it has become longer because, once upon a time I thought that I should run marathons, and that led to running. And then I said, if I have limited time, what is the best way to do it? So Saturday, Sunday, do a 30 kilometer and a 10 kilometer, and that kind of makes you ready for a marathon. So that's how it came into being. But the real thing in that running, and I've also realized that much more in this COVID situation, is that it was actually about networking or learning from people or helping them. So all those, 4, 5, 6 hours spent on the running track over the weekend were really talking to people. And I had this term called runversation. So it was really about engaging and helping and so on. And running was also, a corollary of all of that. So I think that's what has been driving me. It's the same purpose, really, I think. It is manifesting itself in many different forms. Running on the weekend was one manifestation of it, and there are many other manifestations of the same purpose. So I think once you start to see the core purpose, its shape and form keep changing, and that's fine. But the thing is, I didn't miss my running during this time, because there were other ways in which I would engage with people. And I realized that while I go back to running, I think it's a healthy habit. I enjoy the nature and so on and so forth. But it's not something that I will die if I didn't run or so on and so forth. In fact, picked up running only when I was like 35, 36 years old. So I told myself I did live a healthy life before running, and I could live it even if for whatever reason, if I don't have to run. So I think, again, goes back to what you really believe in, what you really pursue, and other things follow. So in that prioritization, I have focused on things that are important to me and spend my time on that. And then many other things don't happen. So if I look at my approach, I like to prioritize sleep, because I realize if I don't sleep well, I'm not productive. So 8 hours of sleep on a daily basis has been my norm. And then going to office, when I used to, I would spend time talking to people on the phone, because again, I like to engage. And these could be people who are referred to me, who might have approached me through LinkedIn or any other forum. So that daily an hour commute spent on talking to a lot of people gave me that energy to get to office, and then spend time in office, come back home, spend time with the family and so on. And the weekend is spent on running. So I think what I don't do is a more interesting list than what I just described what I do. So I don't read the newspaper. I don't watch news. I haven't watched TV formally for maybe a decade. I don't read books. I read a few articles here and there. So my entire source of connection and knowledge is through people. So many things. I don't watch sports at all. So I have pretty much very little interest in any of the things which is called news, which is happening right now. I'm happy to consume it when it comes to me after social curation, which is through either a WhatsApp forward or through a conversation having with you or all of that. Because to me, it's not important to know any of those things either when they are happening or even before they are happening. I'm quite happy to know the gist of it when they've already happened, and I think it is relevant to me. So many times I'll be like, I will know where the stock market is today, or where the share price of a certain stock is, or who's playing which match, or who's the captain of the Indian team. Some of those things I would not know, and I'm quite happy with that because I realize that it's not important to me. So a lot of things that people would qualify as general knowledge or something that they would crave to know on a daily basis, I have realized that it's not important to me, right or wrong. So I think, again, you have to figure out what makes sense to you, what is important to you, what can you be comfortable with. And I was not like that, by the way. When I came out of an MBA school, I would start opening the newspaper from the back, looking at the share market, where the share price was, all of those. In fact, those were the days when you would want to invest money, make money through share market. News was power, news was money, and all of that, right? So I think I grew up in that same environment that many of the others did, that having access to a lot of information ahead of time or able to predict could result in a source of power, a source of money. And over time, I realized that I didn't need either power or money, and therefore the need for all of those things disappeared. I didn't realize it, but when I look back, that's what has happened.
Those are some great insights, Pankaj, and the way you put it, and I think it's a lot of discipline of not just what you do, of what you don't do, and that's the way you're saying you can balance, the kind of things that you would like to do. Especially today, when we are all bombarded with so much stimulus, it's also important to keep away some of the stuff which you don't want to do, and do it consciously and with discipline. Great. So, as we come towards the end, what is your leadership mantra, Pankaj?
This is an interesting one. So this was actually a mantra point for my daughter, which has now become my mantra, which I talk about. So 3 years ago, when my daughter was going to college, I was told that, why didn't you tell her something? You keep giving gyan to a lot of people, and this is her time to get gyan. And obviously the thinking was that, tell her what courses to study and how to make a career and all of that. And she had taken economics in 11th and 12th, and then taken a course in eco-math stats in Price College. So at that point in time, I thought about what can I tell her? And I thought that maybe let me try to summarize the knowledge and insight that I have gained over my lifetime, and something that will be relevant for her in her lifetime. So I came up with a 3C framework, as I called it at that time, to say, let me give her something which I think will be more a framework, which is an approach to thinking about things, versus a tactical knowledge, or you should take quantitative economics or macroeconomics or something like that. And then I said, I shouldn't be able to do this without properly deriving it based on my own experiences. So the derivation went as under that, Pragya, since you are studying economics, let me derive a framework for you based on economic principles of supply and demand. And my belief is that whatever is important and in short supply in future, should be something that you should acquire as a skill set or as an attitude or a behavior. And what are those 3 things that I believe are likely to be in short supply in future, as I have seen it. And therefore, if you were to acquire it, you will be probably a good person who will be able to deal with the world in a better way than otherwise. So those 3 things were that in my generation, and so much your generation as well. Although when people look at you and me, they will say that there's a huge age gap looking at all my gray hair and all your black hair. But I have to sort of tell them that we are the same generation. So I think in our generation, we all benefited from globalization. We sort of my salary probably went 100 times in the 25, 30 years that I worked since we started, and so on and so forth. So all of us, many of us benefited from that. And globalization was great. We were all very, very collaborative with each other. But now I think the deglobalization is coming, and it will come because the benefits of globalization have not percolated down to the large number of people. And the deglobalization means everyone will look inward, whether you are a country, a company, a person, because somewhere you will think that, I haven't got my due. and I need to take care of myself first, and all helping others and all these collaboration is not really beneficial and all of that. So what will be in short supply is really compassion, that thinking about other people, thinking about the environment, and thinking about. So compassion would be the number one quality which I think people have to acquire, which is the contra to what will be happening around the world. The second one is related to the linearity that I spoke about. We had fewer choices, four hands, Colgate, choose one, Fiat ambassador, choose one, engineer, doctor, choose one. So or you didn't like one and you were happy with the other one, or you didn't get one and you were happy with the other one. So I think our lives were quite simple in those binary choices. Either we didn't like one thing or we didn't get one, we got the other. We were very grateful that we got something that we deserved, and we lived a very comfortable life. Today, with the 100 dimensions of choices, and on each of them 100 choices. So these guys are, all of us are dealing with 10,000 choices on a very rapid basis, and whatever choice people make, they get frustrated that they probably made the wrong choice. And therefore, I think what is right now in short supply is really conviction, belief in yourself, on what you should stand for. And this is right now leading to a lot of mental illness, frustration, all of that. But I do think that believing in yourself, staying with your belief for a while, obviously you can change it later, but staying with it, doing justice to it is important. So second C really was conviction. The third C was again related to the continuous improvement, continuous reinvention analogy that I gave you, is really creativity. So today you have to be really creative. You can't be anything else. And if you look at these three C's, I see a multi-collinearity in that one actually leads to the other. So if you are compassionate and you are, appreciative of the world around you, I think you will find your place in that, which is your conviction of what you should do. And if you have found compassion and conviction, I think creativity will automatically happen. You will be creative. You will figure out how to do it. So this is the 3C framework that I shared with my daughter. And 2 years later, I checked again and she had forgotten it. That's how it happens. You can be extremely happy that you created a framework and you gifted it to your child and life is good. You are a great daddy. And by the way, I had started to share that framework with everyone else, saying, hey, this is not just for her, it's for all of us today. And then I said, so what's wrong? Why did she not get it? And then, of course, as MBAs and as daddies, we added 2 more C's to create version 2.0 of that 3C framework, which now became a 5C framework. And that 5C is really the 1C at the beginning is curiosity. That curiosity should fuel that compassion. And after you are done with creativity, I think communicating and talking about it and sharing with more is the last C. And that communication should probably lead to that curiosity back again, because as you engage, you will probably be curious about something else. And that completes the cycle of the 5 C's. Of course, I gave it back to her. She was quite happy and all of that. And my friends obviously joked with me that 2 years later, we are waiting for 2 more C's to get added, because this is not going to end here. But if you ask me, today I believe in this 5C framework till it changes.
That's what a wonderful way to bring this talk to an end. 5 C's, starting with curiosity and have compassion. And if you have compassion, you are conviction. You need to have that conviction. And once you have that conviction, creativity, you're saying, will come. And of course, communication is kind of an all-round thing, right? Great. And I think I'll try to remember that, implement that. And I'm sure this has been very helpful for all our viewers. Thank you so much, Pankaj, for taking time out. This has been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Saman. Thank you. Bye-bye, viewers.
Bye-bye.